Welcome back to the Random and Wonderful podcast. I'm your host, Grace Simmons, your favorite solo travel mindset coach. Each episode, we explore ways to uplift you on your journey to add joy, confidence, and independence into your life. Today's topic is creating a legacy with Brittany Winkfield. All right. So, Brittany, thank you so much for joining me today on the Random and Wonderful podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here, happy to reconnect with you.
Yes. So we met at the podcast movement in Denver earlier this year. It feels like it was last year. I have to catch myself, honestly.
I'm not the only one because I'm like, that's
No,
ages ago, but it was just
so
2
long
months.
ago.
Right. Right. That was
Insane.
awesome. And
This year
you
has
just,
been rough.
right. You think about the amount of things that happened in between. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like 365 days.
It's the
Yes.
whole year.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm always excited to hear, especially with people who have say different kind of things, but like your job as a journalist, but then you also have a nonprofit, and then you also love to travel. So like, can you dip into that a little bit? Like, what do you do? And then tell me about your nonprofit, and then we'll dive into the travel journey. But I want to hear a little bit more about like, who are you? Who's Brittany?
Thank you for that. Yes, you just mentioned all my favorite things. I am a journalist at heart and started this journey, I'll say, uh, really in my high school career. I had a couple internships that really just sparked my interest in publishing and just I started collecting magazines and just seeing, design, layout, reading the stories and just seeing how it comes to life on the pages. And I am a fan of the print, like the hard
Right.
copy publications. There's just something about it that just feels very real to me. And like I said, I was collecting them. I had aspirations to work for Vibe magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to be a photo editor or some kind of creative, either photography or layout and design. And it was while I was a sophomore in college that I was blessed with an opportunity to intern at Vibe magazine in New York City.
Oh,
And
wow.
I wasn't 21 yet. I was, just kind of eyes wide open, like big
Yeah.
city, and spent 2 months there. And at the end of that experience, they did offer me a job. And I was like, wow, like this is my dream job. Didn't expect it to happen now. I'm just thinking, I'm
Right.
getting experience. I'm here to learn and then go back to school. And so just after a lot of consideration, I did
Mm-hmm.
decline the offer because I just felt like there's still more for me to learn. And that's been
Wow.
one thing that I've really discovered about myself is I just love learning. But I
Mm-hmm.
felt my college career wasn't done yet. I really wanted to finish that. I went to school in Huntsville, Alabama. I went to Oakwood University. It is a HBCU, very small, like family school.
No.
Um, but that even gave me some culture and,
Yeah.
um, just some perspective on what else is out there. What I didn't mention, I was born and raised Denver, Colorado, and didn't have this vast experience of world travel or just diverse cultures. So going to Alabama gave me some
Mm.
exposure, and on to New York City. And while that was a great adventure, I felt, maybe New York wasn't the place to settle down. I just felt a little
Right.
lost in the city. So I thought maybe Atlanta would be the next best thing. And
Okay.
I did have an internship that also turned into a job um, immediately after I graduated high school, and it was with Upscale magazine. So in Atlanta, got some some experience there, but also was having this feeling like I don't see myself living here long term.
Mhm.
Maybe it was the traffic. I mean, people are great, food is excellent, all these great things, but it was something that just wasn't home. So
Mhm.
ultimately came back home, and uh, at the time, um, I did have this passion still to create and tell stories of people, and so I launched this. It was a nonprofit, but it was a magazine. We operated as a magazine called Back to Basics, and our
Mm.
mission was just to inform and inspire young people. And it was a faith-based magazine, so we would just fill it with different Q&A interviews of people of influence. Just you know, I always said it was for the culture, but really spoke to the younger demographic. And within the last 2 years, we took a pivot and wanted to do more of a experiential learning, more kind of programming work. So
Mhm.
the magazine has kind of launched into its own set of programs, but we still have the same mission and foundation of like informing and inspiring young people, but giving them like practical skills that they could
Yeah.
use, and starting at a very early age. So, like, we're talking 5 years old.
Oh my
They're,
goodness.
yes, right? Imagine of um, ownership, entrepreneurship, and our flagship program is called the Go Girls Pop Up Stand. And I'm just so proud. We have a group of about 20 girls who operate this lemonade stand essentially. And every dollar they earn is what they keep. They pay
Um,
people who work the pop up stand, and everybody has a job. We have managers and uh, cashiers. We have marketing people who go out and walk with the signs. It's incredible
that
to
is
see,
amazing.
to witness how this has grown into now
Mhm.
it's just sparking a new generation of creators. I will always keep creativity at the forefront, and whatever they dream or imagine, hopefully doing whatever we can to make that come to fruition. So that is Back to Basics. And yeah, we've done a lot over the past 2 years. Like, the magazine was my heart, like my baby.
Mhm.
Um, and thankfully, too, the journey has brought me into a position, um, with the Denver Urban Spectrum, which is a local publication where I'm still able to write and create and, just think of how we are telling our story creatively.
Mhm.
So I am the associate publisher with the Denver Urban Spectrum. And I'll say I'm like the admin to the girls who operate the pop up stand and everything with Back to Basics. I just make sure we have the resources that we need to get the business
Yeah.
done. But I'm having a lot of fun. And yeah, between those two, it just keeps me active and really living the dream. Yeah.
Amazing. Like that's
Yes.
such a cool program and process. Um, it's neat to be able to give people like a way to tell their story, but then when you actually give them that experience where they can actually create and build and a pop-up stand, that's such a cool idea. And it's something
So
that they get to keep. So that is wonderful
much.
work.
Yeah, and they're really, I think, setting themselves up for great success. They'll have this
Hmm.
kind of toolbox, is how I picture it, and they'll be like, "I've done this before. Like, let me pull this
Right.
out, pull this skill out, and utilize it, in their adult lives." Because as I'm learning with my own children, I have three daughters, and they don't stay small forever. So,
Right.
just
Right.
like feeding them the things that will only help them in the future. It's my
Mm.
joy. Hmm.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you for
I was
listening.
gonna
I
say,
love
yeah, you talked about you talked about the nonprofit and your job, but I was like, you also are like you have a whole family, so that's three total right jobs that
Woo!
you're doing. Man,
Right, right, and it just has been so much in alignment that
mm,
I feel very blessed because I don't know if that's the case for everybody. Like they're doing this and it's just separate from this, but I kind of see this path. Um, you know, I always love to reflect back on the journey, like how did I get here? And so what I've told you today is I feel like it's the short story, but you
I'm
kind of
sure.
see it's, it's been connected, and
Yeah.
I just feel this deep calling on my life to share, well, I think to tell the narrative of like Black culture, um, really how it fits into the future generations. Um,
Hmm.
I do know that we don't have a strong, like, uh, historian individual. Like that's not in every community. So as
Right.
long as I'm here, I want to be uh, the storyteller for the next generation, like being able to create something like beyond my lifetime, and
Hmm.
also my daughters can have something to aspire to and have for themselves in, I mean, hopefully in that creative space, like however you're
Right.
showing up for your community. Yeah.
So speaking of, because you traced well three different communities, home of course, but then also going to New York and then being in Alabama, and I'm curious of how in each of those destinations you're working within journalism. How are you able to keep that like one? How are you able to keep that story going, and then does it change based on where you were, or
Right.
you how did you remain aligned?
Yes, yes. I think every step was necessary for like that
Okay.
next step, you know. We always
Hmm.
say the journey is, it doesn't always make sense while you're in it and you're like, what does this have to do with anything sometimes? But it always makes sense when you look back. And I know that, me not having experience from New York, taking that then to Atlanta and, finishing my education, being able to then translate that. Like I spent actually a few, well, I'll say a good 10 years in the nonprofit space, like not even with
Okay.
back to basics, but working at the Chamber of Commerce. And there was an organization local called the Civic Canopy. And even, spent a little time in government, just
Mm.
learning that field. And um, every experience really gave me skills that I didn't think I'd really need on that next step.
Yeah.
But again, that was kind of my toolkit. It's like I've learned these skills here. I'm applying them here and growing to take it here. Like to the every next level has been, I think, a explanation or kind of blossoming of the experience before. So
Mhm.
taking what I
Mhm.
learned to apply it in every single situation, because even with back to basics, that has been kind of trial by fire, but it's definitely taught me a lot about how to use it. In this, we're doing a year-end giving campaign with the Denver Urban Spectrum, and
Okay.
I would have known, like, outside of Google, where would I have developed those skills and how to
Right.
ask, how to do some fundraising and rally people behind a mission, um, even in a for profit space. So I just see that the alignment has really, it's been 2020 as I look back. Like, it's really mind blowing that I'm able to live now in purpose and with so much connection
Mm,
even in like all these different spaces. And I think what you mentioned too is like the beautiful thing is I'm able to incorporate my family as well and just think about
yeah.
that that legacy building too. They may not care about journalism at all, but I think these skills were called the organization back to basics because they're just basic skills that
Right.
are practical enough that you can use kind of in every field.
And they're necessary, like you said. These are like building blocks for your different journey. So even if you have a completely different path, knowing how to create something and sell it and connect with other people and pull somebody, like those are things that you need regardless
Yes.
of what you do. Even if
Yeah.
you think you're working by yourself, you need these skills. So I think that's beautiful to be able to teach that at a young age and then even learning it as an adult.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely skills
right?
you always need.
Yeah, you learn so much about yourself just on a daily. Hopefully, it's a practice that people are experimenting with is just, what am I learning myself? And,
Hmm.
how do I see this showing up in the future? I think it's a great perspective that I've learned from the babies. Yeah.
Learning about who I am, and that kind of ties in a bit of my story is that through my travel, I
Mhm.
realized like you're like the skills that you're like this is just for me, I'm sure, right? And then you learn like, oh no, I did this while I was over here, and
Mhm.
so like, I want to talk a little bit more about like your travel style, traveling for school, or maybe like how it connected to work. What is your travel style?
Yes, I love that. I've not considered really like what my travel style is. I know if I hear any inkling of a trip forming, I'm like, tell me the details. How soon are we leaving? Like, instantly, I don't even need a reason. Like, you say you're going to Iceland, I'm like, sign me up.
Let's go.
So,
Let's go.
so far, yeah, I have more experiences with friends who will say,
Mm,
I want to go here. And then, joining in kind of on the fun. I don't think I'm a planner of, great detail. I just say as long as there's good food and good company,
right.
I'm there for whatever experience comes my way. So
Yeah.
what you would call that type of travel style, but I am here for it. And I've definitely been, gotten myself in trouble for some just last minute adventures that
Hmm.
sounded like a good idea. And I don't regret anything.
What are some things that you've learned through your trips? Like, what are some either interesting or like epic adventures that you've had?
Yes. Well, uh, it was not so it was February of 2022. I went with a friend to Cancun, Mexico. Quick little trip. But we did find ourselves in like a compromising van or vehicle. It was
Oh
just
no.
full of like women and children, and you would not know that it was, sanctioned by any organization. It looked very sketchy. Is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, in making that judgment call, I mean, we got in, we got to our destination safely, but looking back, I think it does teach you like just to be a little more conscious of your surroundings,
Right.
especially just in foreign countries where your language is not, the native language and,
Hmm.
really get into some unsafe situations. That's one thing. Like I don't know how to teach myself like to be more, I'll say noticing, because I feel
Okay.
like I'm aware of my surroundings, but just, thinking through where could this lead And are there
Mhm.
other options? Are there, some other solutions that I didn't explore yet? Or is this just kind of impulsive and maybe not the best move? That has been a lesson, and we always laugh about it. Like, remember that time? Don't leave us alone. We need others to help us. I think my most recent travels have been to the continent of Africa, and that was one of
Mm.
my like top destinations. Just to feel, like as a Black woman, I felt this calling, like you need to go to Africa and just
Mm.
feel the people and see if there's a connection because they say you want to go back home and visit at least once. That's kind of what
Yeah.
I had in mind. So I was like, okay, one day, and that opportunity came. It was June of this year, and really just opened my eyes. I think it was kind of in that moment we did explore they had the slave dungeons in Ghana. Went to the Cape Coast castles and the Elmina castles. Um, but just walking in those like cold stone buildings and realizing like somebody went through this torturous
Yeah.
experience. I don't know what I thought I knew. It's like I always had this image of, people, well, colonizers coming and kind of snatching people out of their families and like immediately putting them on these
Mhm. Mhm.
ships. Um, but no, there was like these holding cells. Really,
Yeah.
it was a dungeon, and they would hold them for 3 months at a time just to see if they were viable, like see if they were strong enough to make the journey
Mm.
across the ocean. So it was a moment that brought me to my knees. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared for that, but it did really just give me this awakening. Like you are here for a purpose. None of us are here by accident. Like
Mhm.
our ancestors went through some things that we could never imagine.
Yeah.
And so I felt this great responsibility of what am I doing to make it worth it, really? And
Mm.
what is my purpose in not letting that narrative die? Because, if I didn't know, I'm sure my children won't know. I feel like this country has been showing signs of them, trying to do everything they can to
Yeah.
not tell that story, really to erase it and like,
Erase. Yeah.
yeah, it never
Yep.
happened. Um, and unfortunately, I just felt naive. Like I never
Mm.
knew it was bad. But just to have the tour guides break it down and then to just be on that soil. And even that was a moment where they showed us like the buildup of, I mean, think of like body fluids and
Mhm.
just the buildup. It wasn't even, it was this morphing of um, just the tears and the uh, all of the you know all of the torture that happened in there. We were standing on top of,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it really just gave me a sense of you know life is short. This is not
Mm.
to be just leisurely um, doing whatever you want. I think it just gave me like this fire, like
Yeah.
we have a mission, and kind of I understood the assignment. Like it woke me up to just a greater calling. And so as I think about my future with the Denver Urban Spectrum, and as a journalist, as a storyteller, this is what I see as a natural next step, like in
Okay.
owning the urban spectrum, being able to um, continue that legacy of amplification of Black stories, because our our mission has always been spreading the news about people of color. And I think it goes even deeper than that for the next generation to be able to
Mhm.
have a source of information and history, um, just so they're more empowered and informed, like going forward. And then I just think of then the generations to come. It becomes bigger than myself. So I would say that trip to Ghana, and we even explored some of Egypt as well, and just
Okay.
seeing like identity and um, just ourself in even the Egyptian history. Um, it gives you that. Well, it gave me urgency, and it gave me that sense of purpose.
We were talking about legacy earlier, making sure you're establishing that legacy. What a kickstart
Hmm.
to ensure that you stick with that path, because to be able to go back and just see what our people have gone through to get to where we are as things
Mhm.
are now. Yes, they're not great, but we have evidence that they were way worse, right? And so I appreciate you saying that and sharing that moving story of I was actually in a place where you could envision all of that muck and
Mhm.
torture, like just that
Yeah.
physical mess, emotion,
Yeah. Mhm.
and so I can't even. That's definitely a kickstart to make sure our story is told fully and well,
Right.
and
Right.
continue to be shared for generations to come. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your work.
Thank you, Grace. I
Yeah.
so appreciate this conversation because I think that's important too, as you travel and have experiences, just reflecting and processing, what did
Hmm.
this mean to me? What did it teach me? And how am I using it going forward? I think we get so busy in life. Like we were just talking about how August seems like years ago.
Right.
Um, there's a lot that happens, like it comes at us so fast. Just being able to sit down, process, and,
Hmm.
you know, transfer information, I think is so important. And that's why I love this podcast. I love this form of communication, being
Yeah.
able to just connect in this way. It's powerful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hmm.
Thank you. You're jumping ahead on my questions here because I was going to ask you about how you taught, like how do you approach gratitude after travel, like after travel like that. How do you find, yeah, how do you keep track of gratitude in a way that inspires you to move forward and not just like I'm happy to be where I am. The way you tell your story, it's you've gotten this push. So how do you keep yourself in that spirit of gratitude?
Yeah. Well, one very practical practice that I've picked up. I think it was maybe just before the trip, but I was already having this call to be more reflective.
Mm,
I am a journaler. There's been some seasons that I've just taken off because life is busy. But I wanted to at least, at the very least, just every day write three things that you're grateful for.
mm,
And that has been, very manageable, like something I can stay consistent with. And the list sometimes goes on and on. But when I came back, I was definitely wanting to capture the experience and kind of some lessons that were learned. Thankfully, I was able to write a piece for the Urban Spectrum, and in partnership with one of the leaders that organized this trip, we did write a story. We also recorded a podcast. And this has been something that we're experimenting with, is like expanding the narrative, like beyond the story on the page, but being
yeah.
able to
Yeah.
incorporate the voices that were there, the people that are being spoken about. So I think that has been very helpful to me. And I think another next step that I really would love to do. Really, because I'm a photographer at heart, I've been doing a lot more video. Is to just do kind of a recap. Um, I want to say vlog, and that's kind of sounds dated to me, but I would love to just do some audio, more in a voiceover manner, but just kind of
Hmm.
give that visual sense, so that we kind of are utilizing all these senses that
Yeah.
come along with storytelling. Like I would want you to see it, Grace, like, because it's just something different when you see it. And then of course, encouraging others to go for the experience and
Yes.
you know make it part of your aspiration, or um, in future trip planning, like make sure that this is one for everybody. I would say, like, you
Hmm.
don't know until you're there. It's something I didn't see coming, but now has been my like encouragement for other people. Like, you have to go, and being able to speak about it. Once people return, that
Hmm.
has the narrative. That's the narrative.
I remember reading somewhere, I was either reading or someone told me this, but trying to, so like when you're visiting somewhere, like just trying to capture little audio snippets. Or I know we take videos that we never watch, or we take pictures we never watch, but just recording in that moment and then reflecting and using that is, I'm starting to do that every once in a while. Like I think I did that once in Denver and on a recent trip to New Orleans. My
Mhm.
friends and I were talking, and I was like, I'm just, heads up, guys, I'm recording you. And it was just funny how the conversation went. We forgot I was recording. And it was just such a special, natural, moment in conversation while having this discussion. So, yeah, I think
Let me
adding all the different ways of like experiencing this, it helps to tell that story.
live for it, really. And I'm so glad to hear you doing that. Like, it just, for me, has been a natural instinct. Like, I just need
Hmm.
to document. My friends call me a modern day historian, and I wear that proudly, because I am definitely here to capture. I'm like, if you know my kids, they're well documented, and as we just live life, I just have this almost a need to just have the photos, videos, audio
Hmm.
clips to collect, and really help my memory. Maybe that's really why I'm doing it. But to be able to have snapshots this moment in time, even last year, to see what growth has taken place, or something I'm reminded of that I don't know if I would have been, otherwise. So it is something I just cannot live without.
I respect it. I really do. I know there are times, sometimes where we're like so involved in our phones, or we're taking pictures of things and you're not actually participating. And it's nice to be able to, like, when you see there's a difference of documenting a moment versus, no, I'm just taking pictures and I'm on to the next thing. It's like, no, no, I want to be in this moment. I want you to see what it felt like, so that when you come, you feel like, oh yeah, this is, but it's going to be different because you're experiencing it for yourself. And that's, I don't know, that's kind of the
Right.
amazing difference, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit of a complex, but I do think that that's the reason why that reflection piece is so important. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
being
Mm-hmm.
intentional, making time and space, because it may not always rise to the top. Like, I don't have time to reflect. Like, what do you mean? I got emails to check, or, like, but I
Yep.
think it is so important, because it just makes you more grateful, I think, and just
Mm-hmm.
really aware. Like, you have this almost a change in mindset. Like, I had this experience. I was able to reflect and, however that looks like for you. And I'm like, revisit it. I print out my photos. I'll have frames occasionally and change them out.
Yeah.
But being able to just remember, like, if there's a key word is like remember um,
Hmm.
where you've gone, what you learned, and kind of what your next step is, remembering why we're here, right?
I love that. That's like a piece of what I advise people, especially when they're traveling, is make sure you take the time to reflect. Because after you've spent your money, you've gone on this trip, you're
Mhm.
finally back home. And I think people just like drop their suitcases and get ready to go to work.
Yeah,
It's like, no, just take
that's
just
so
take a
yeah,
little bit of time and reflect on what you just did. Like, first off, good job. You actually did
yeah,
this trip. And then write about it, talk about it. What was the good? What was the bad? How'd you feel? That's why I think it's important to like capture those moments because then you can go back and say, oh my gosh, I'm rewatching. Like I was rewatching a video from a couple years ago, just telling someone a story. And I was like, I could have sworn hold on, let me, and I'm like looking at these pictures and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, this is the moment. Like this is what I was, and it just brings it back. You remember so many of the things that you probably forget in the middle of excitedly telling a story. So that
yeah,
reflection it's definitely key.
yes, bringing it all back. Yeah.
So, what is coming up for you? What do you have? Oh, we're almost in 2024 at this point,
Right. I'm
just
thinking we're
insane.
probably less
But
than maybe we're like 2 weeks. I think we got about two
two,
weeks.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I yes,
With these
I am
2 weeks going into 20, what's coming up for you?
I love the idea of intention setting, like goal planning and starting out those first 100 days like this is what I think I expect to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
taking the time to reflect on that. So I actually have this um, it's 100-day goal planner. I
Oh.
just busted out and I'm hoping that within the next, I'll just say the next year, that we are going through transition at the Denver Urban Spectrum, and the current owner is looking to retire, and she has thankfully, um, say, accepted me as her successor, and
Wow!
it's
Congratulations!
it's so exciting to think about.
I'm so
Um,
excited
you
for
know,
you.
as this is incredible, like really part of that living the dream is
Mm-hmm.
I've ever experienced. Even every trip has led me to this moment, and
Yeah.
I feel well equipped and just hopeful that this is the next iteration of this legacy publication that has meant so much to so many, and
Mm.
yeah, being able to represent in a way that I feel is my calling. So this next few months, the next year will be one of transition
Yeah.
planning, getting things in order, and that's why the goal setting is first and foremost on my list,
Mhm.
and we will see where God leads, like where we're gonna go in 2024. But I'm definitely here for all of it.
I just wanna like my heart feels so happy to hear you say, and as I go into this next step, I feel well equipped. It is so rare.
Hmm.
It's so rare to hear like a black woman say, "Yes, I noticed this door opening and I'm ready to go through that door." Like, yes, we'll be in touch
Yeah.
because I want to hear more about this journey.
Yes.
Like it makes me so happy. I'm happy just from your journey and the way that you have, I would say navigated, but like, yeah, the way you've navigated through each of these different steps. And as you go up, you're also growing out, which is an amazing, amazing feat because some people don't do that. You kind of go the opposite way. The higher up you go, the more within yourself you become. And that's not the person that you are. So I am praying for you and I wish the best of luck for you.
Thank you, Grace. I so appreciate that. And this has been the highlight for sure of my year.
Yay!
Speaking with, yes, I would love to hear, like, do you have any big plans for 2024? Like anything coming up for you?
While I'm hosting a coaching program, so Empowered Solo, a little
Mm,
adjustment on the date, but this is a program that I want, especially for women, to step into that solo travel experience. Um,
mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer of building your confidence in that personal development through travel. It's been a miraculous vehicle for me. And
Yeah.
so it's going to be an 8-week program teaching women to get to know themselves, build that self awareness, and then get them traveling. And then we end
Woo.
with an in person retreat where you can all just gather, see
Yes.
everybody in person, and then you do your solo trip. So I'm excited. I'm very excited for this.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you so
That's
much. Thank you.
amazing. So amazing. Yeah, you're doing it. And
Thank you.
that, I
Thank
mean,
you.
you
Look
saying
at
yes
us.
to yourself. Yes, that's a big step.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm happy and I'm excited for what next year has to come.
Yeah.
Well, I greatly appreciate you being here. This is such a wonderful conversation. It's like a favorite of mine when I have certain questions laid out and then our discussion goes in a completely different direction. And when I appreciate like the direction that it's taken, I'm like, oh yes, this is not me. And I appreciate this so much. So I thank you again for taking the time to join me here today.
Thank you for having me. And I hope we can connect soon and not
Yes,
too far and few in between.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
All right. If you're looking for an excuse to travel in October, I'm hosting a wellness retreat in a location that requires a passport. There's space for 10 ladies, and with this trip, you can attend live coaching sessions to plan out your first solo trip. So please invite a friend so you guys can bond together over this amazing experience. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please rate the show so that other people can find it and subscribe so you don't miss a new episode. As always, be bold, be curious, be ready to tell your story. You never know who needs it. Take care, have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you soon.